Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have Sidus Space. It trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol SIDU, and it's located in Cape Canaveral, Florida, operates from a 35,000 square foot manufacturing, assembly, integration, and testing facility focused on commercial satellite design, manufacture, launch, and data collection. Please welcome its CEO and founder, Carol Craig. Welcome, Carol. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Great. I'm so excited to hear about your company. So the floor is yours. Whenever you're ready, please begin.
Thank you so much. So I appreciate the opportunity today to be able to speak to everyone and share more about Sidus Space and our mission for bringing space down to Earth. My name is Carol Craig. I'm the founder and CEO of Sidus Space, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Craig Technologies, which is a nationwide engineering technology firm that supports government and commercial customers for the last 20 years. And Sidus Space is a spinoff of Craig Technologies and also the majority shareholder. In addition to myself, my leadership team is made up of individuals with extremely qualified, diverse, and experienced backgrounds in a number of industries that complement what we are doing: commercial space, U.S. government, large aerospace and defense firms, manufacturing, and also telecom. We've been supporting the U.S. government in commercial customers in space for over 10 years now, but there's a reason that we're extremely excited now to really expand our offerings and grow Sidus Space and service this particular economy. It's because the space economy is taking off. A lot of people have become more familiar with space because of tourism, the tourism industry related to space. And believe it or not, that's only 1% of the actual space economy or total addressable market for space. And as you can see, there are projections that the 1.4 trillion is where the space economy is projected to be over the next 20 years. So with that tourism being only 1%, that means that there's a significant amount additional economy or additional businesses that will be supporting that space economy. And one of those is related to satellites and space-based data. And that's part of what our services are and how we support. The projections are 14,000 satellites over the next 10 years. It could be, I've heard somewhere around 40,000 before, but the bottom line is the space economy is growing and we're taking advantage of that. One of the things that makes Sidus Space unique in this particular industry is that we've actually been in business for the last 10 years. So we combine 10 years of commercial, military, and government experience, flight heritage, experience up on the International Space Station, existing customers with innovation. And so having that perspective and being able to bring that to the table, and we're not just a startup, but we are early stage and revenue generating, really gives us a little bit more of an offering when you look at some of the others that are in the space right now. As mentioned, we do have a 35,000 square foot facility in Cape Canaveral, Florida, that is in operation right now and has been in place for a while. And also what this means is that our certifications, regulations, all those things that seem to make space difficult are already in place for us, and we have experience with that. We're also very committed to innovation, which is why we have current patents that are issued and are also pending. So we call ourselves a space as a service company, and that's space with a capital S. There are a number of different types of definitions and buzzwords that are going around, and everyone has a different idea of what it might mean. To us, space as a service means from cradle to grave, being able to support the customers no matter what their needs are. So it could be engineering, it could be manufacturing hardware, it could be launching a satellite, and then it could also be just providing space-based data for our customers' needs. And we can provide all of that. A lot of this, again, because of our experience the last 10 years of providing this type of support to our customers, but also because of our innovations recently in different products related to our satellite constellation. So as you can see, we have multiple space platforms that we provide that are either developed or in development. One of those is LizzieSat, which is our partially 3D manufactured satellite, and I'll discuss that a little bit later. Also, our external flight test platform, which we launched up to the International Space Station back in 2019, and then was able to bring it back down in the beginning of 2021 and do testing on the various experiments that were sent up to the International Space Station. We have a Phoenix deployer in development right now, and that is to launch CubeSats. And then one of our products that is actually up on the International Space Station is the Cyclops product, which is an on-orbit satellite deployer, and that allows us to be able to deploy satellites off of the International Space Station. We can also deploy satellites through our partnerships with other companies and launch providers as well. Our space hardware manufacturing is another source of revenue. And I mentioned the satellites with space-based data, but that one is a source of revenue that we've been supporting for the last 10 years, and it gives us that heritage, and we can provide design engineering, precision machining, fabrication, the entire life cycle of manufacturing as well. So we are very well positioned because of our heritage. We have an established customer base as opposed to starting from scratch. We're in discussions with a number of global partners, and we are company owned. The company is owned and based in the United States. So to talk a little bit more about our constellation, we do have the regulations and the licenses already approved. We are ITU, which is the International Telecommunications Union approval for our spectrum filing. The spectrum is the frequency up and down that allows you to actually transmit data. It is kind of a significant achievement and not easy for just anyone to do really quickly. So we have that in place for 100 satellites. In addition to that, we are vertically integrated. So we are manufacturing our own satellites in-house. That allows us to control the production life cycle, which means we can build satellites faster, and we can integrate customer requirements at various stages during that life cycle. Additionally, our 3D printed satellite design is proprietary, and it is a modular design, which again allows us to integrate later stage type of technologies during that process. So if a customer wants to get to orbit quicker, we can do that for them. You can see that we have a plan for our 100 satellites, phase 1, 2, and 3, over the next few years. Satellites have approximately an 18-month life cycle, which means that we'll continue to manufacture to replenish that satellite, with that, which also means recurring customers. So I'll talk a little bit more about LizzieSat. LizzieSat is a 100-kilogram size satellite. That equates to about 220 pounds, kind of in the micro satellite, in the middle of the larger satellites, and then some of the CubeSats and nanosats that you've heard about. It is lighter weight because we use 3D printed materials for part of the actual external outside of the satellite. That also allows us to integrate more customer needs or sensors or technologies into the satellite and still keep those costs down. In addition to integrating customers' technologies to be able to test them on orbit, we also integrate our own sensors, which allows us to provide data for other customers' needs as well. And that satellite constellation is owned and managed by Sidus Space. So we control our own destiny. So it's a multi-mission satellite for multi-mission constellation, which is very unique in this industry. It's not singularly focused on one particular sensor or on one particular customer, whether that's government or commercial. It really is bringing space down to Earth for everyone. And this is just an example of where that LizzieSat, that size, fits into the ecosystem of satellites. And one thing to note is our satellite is a reasonably priced satellite, or cost satellite to build, not in the $20 million range, where some of the larger ones can be up to $300 million, and then not in the lower range. And one of the things about the 100-kilogram size, or this little bit larger size, is that it has more functionality. We can integrate propulsion into our satellite, whereas CubeSats, nanosats can struggle a little bit more with that. And what's important about propulsion is that you can control the satellite a little bit easier, deorbit if you need to, avoid orbital debris and other things like that. So again, a little more functionality allows for more customers in one satellite. And again, with us owning our own and managing our own constellation, we can have multiple clusters of satellites that are dedicated to individual customers. So what does it really mean, bringing space down to Earth? And I've kind of talked about it a little bit here before, but it really is the end user focused. Like the crossroads in the 90s, the crossroad of the internet started really, it was focused academic only. And then the government was involved. And then it became available to companies, and then the buy-in with consumers. And that's really where I believe that we are right now with space, starting with academic, government, and we're moving to consumer and the end user. And that's what we're looking to do. We want to bring space down to Earth and be able to provide the data or the opportunity to be a part of the space ecosystem for those individuals or those companies or countries who otherwise wouldn't be able to do that because it's too expensive, or there's these barriers to entry, heavy regulation, the rapidly changing industry industry. It's very hard to keep up unless you're familiar with it. And it's extremely cost prohibitive in some ways for those types of customers. So we really want to help our customers understand how space-based data can be impactful to their day-to-day business. I believe we are going to see for sure that there will be a transition from terrestrial data supplied to space-based data. And this is just a list of our target customers. There are endless growth opportunities because whether it's academic or individual consumers, government, tech startups, everyone is able to access space, through what we offer. Channel partners, space is big. There's enough space for everybody, and no one's going to capture the entire market. And if we work together, which is what we do with channel partners, we'll all be able to service everyone and share in the space. This is just an example of the satellite uses by industry. And you can see in agriculture in particular, one example might be soil monitoring for water content. And you can determine whether or not particular crops are going to fail or survive over a particular amount of time and kind of predict into the future. And what that does is it also is an opportunity for commodity investment. On the health side, you can monitor carbon monoxide concentrations in certain areas, whether that's countries or over cities. And of course, the government, there are a number of opportunities there for whether it's, tracking for disaster management and aftermath hurricanes, fires, things like that, or border protection. And I think you can have seen where in a particular situation like we're seeing overseas that there's other very, very important applications for satellite imagery as well. So a little background related to historical and the financials. As I mentioned before, Sidus Space has been in business for the last 10 years, and we have over 25 million in revenue from inception, a little bit over that. And the initial seed funding, as I mentioned, came from Craig Technologies. It was around 16 million, not in one tranche. It was over 10 years, so it was very slow growth as we built Sidus Space. And then we IPO'd in December of 2021. You can see from our comparisons of 2021 and 2022 that we are growing significantly. If you compare Q1 of 2021 to Q1 of 2022, you can see over 1,000% growth. And another key metric is the gross profit. You can see the increase there between 2021 and 2022. And that is a result of our satellite constellation revenue. In December of 2021, we put out a press release and we signed 2 contracts for our satellite that is manifested actually for the end of this year. And lastly, you can see that the total 2021 revenue was 1.4 million and Q1 2022 is 1.8. So we're very excited about the future and our growth. So our mission is really to enable existing and future customers to prove out new technologies and be able to be a part of the space ecosystem, whether that's technologies from academia or startups. That's one of the revenue streams. And then also to have access to that space-based data, no matter what it is, no matter what the sensor is, no matter what their requirements are, so they can solve any problem or business need. So we're combining heritage and our traditional space industry experience with the disruptive innovation of a multi-mission satellite for a multi-mission constellation to be uniquely positioned to lead the global space economy growth. So thank you very much. I'm open to answering questions.
Wonderful. All right, let's get into these questions. Lots of questions from our audience, starting with Alma Rogers. She understands that your company manufactures satellites. Can you elaborate on whether there are other revenue streams for this company?
Sure, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we are a space as a service company because we believe that providing all those services related to space from cradle to grave is an important service. And so all of those are revenue streams. So our heritage is space hardware, and we're going to continue, and we do continue to manufacture space hardware for space, defense, marine, and other commercial industries. And then we also have our space platforms, as we mentioned. So each one of those is in itself a revenue stream. And the target market for each of those varies, whether it's consumers or it's US government or international governments. And then we can also deploy other customers' satellites. So our on-orbit deployer on the International Space Station is available to launch others' satellites from the ISS. And to go back also to the constellation itself, I mentioned the two primary revenue verticals, and one of those is the on-orbit testing for new technologies. It is extremely expensive for a company or an academic partner to test a technology on orbit and truly get that flight heritage, because they've got to pay for building the satellite itself, and then they've got to pay for testing, and they've got to integrate their technology, and then there are the launch costs, and then of course the data piece of it. And you have to have it set up so that you can bring the data back down and then and do what you need with that data. We provide all of that. And so that is one of the verticals within the constellation itself. And then the other is our own sensors that we plan on sending up to be able to provide data without the tech. So customers can come to us with a need, simply asking, I'm looking for this type of data or this imagery or this particular sensor to detect something. Can you provide that? And we can do that. So the other thing to add on all of these revenues is every single one of those revenue streams is scalable and we're able to grow.
Fascinating. Space as a service. I like that.
Space as a service.
So Randall Conley asks, well, first of all, Randall says, great information to you, Carol. Are your design engineering services going to be located in the new facilities in Florida, or are they deployed across the U.S.?
So they're primarily located in the facility in Florida, the Cape Canaveral facility. Of course, we do have engineers who work for us that are remotely located, but that's where our design services are. And we've been there for several years. So we're continuing to expand that footprint at Cape Canaveral. It's a great place to be if you're going to be in space.
I bet. Paul Lee asks, what's the company doing to gain more exposure?
Very good question. So one of the things that we're doing is participating in investor conferences like this, and then also participating in industry panels and conferences. It's really important in our industry to be a part of that. We've done that in the past, but as we expand our offerings and as the space economy and the industry grows, it's really important that we continue to participate. Our next event is actually the Financial Times Investing in Space Conference, and that's going to be held in London in early June, and I'm invited to participate on a panel with some of the other subject matter experts, so we're doing that. We're also in discussion with analysts and other institutional investors, and continue to find opportunities for journalist coverage with articles and interviews, really get the word out about Sidus Space, because what we are doing is very unique. Also, our IR team has a specific outreach program that's targeted at financial professionals to make sure that Sidus Space becomes well known among that community as well.
Fascinating. Israel Price wants to know what the long-term growth expectations are for the company.
Well, we're very excited about the future. Our company experienced over 1,000% growth. I mentioned that before for the first quarter this year as compared to the first quarter of last year. And while, you shouldn't really expect that kind of percentage growth, each quarter, we believe that we're well positioned to have significant year-over-year growth for the foreseeable future. Although there's no assurance about this, but as the space economy grows and as we grow, we do believe that we're well positioned to take advantage of that.
Doug Becker asks, what are the competitive advantages of your company?
So I mentioned this before as well, the heritage experience. And along with that is the staying power as a company. We've been in business for many years, and myself as well, over 20 years. So we've powered through recessions and different kinds of COVID and a lot of things like that. So there is that staying power, but it really is the heritage experience to begin with. We understand space hardware, whether we're building it for somebody else, we're building it for ourselves. And then the vertical integration of satellite manufacturing. There are a number of companies that are doing similar things to what we're doing, maybe not the full breadth like we are, but a lot of them are not manufacturing their own satellites in-house. And one of the reasons we wanted to do that was to be able to keep the cost down, take advantage of efficiencies and really increase the speed of production. So, and as I mentioned before, being able to integrate those technologies at varying stages within our production or those customer needs and requirements, it's really, I believe, a discriminator to allow us to get somebody on orbit faster than others. We also focus on, for our satellites, on using commercial off-the-shelf subsystems and the things that support the satellite. And the reason for that is because they're already flight certified. So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, and we wanted to be able to keep that fast-paced production cycle. So by using commercial off-the-shelf subsystems, we can integrate, we can move much faster in our production cycle. Another differentiator is our 100-kilogram size satellite. I mean, we're not in the CubeSat in this particular. We can launch CubeSats. We have a CubeSat deployer, but LizzieSat really is in that unique position for that flexibility and for the ability to have propulsion. So that's a discriminator. And then just in general, our multi-mission satellite for a multi-mission constellation model. I mean, that really is a unique business case compared to some of what the others are doing. You know, it's not that we're trying to be everything to everybody, but we certainly believe that we can solve a number of different customers' needs with the same satellite and with the same constellation.
Wonderful. Latoya Lawrence asks, where do you see the business today and tomorrow? It's lots of talks about the future. In other words, what are your expectations for the commercial space?
Yeah, well, and I kind of talked about that, about the crossroads of the internet. I think there's no question that space is here to stay. You know, I think we realize that, and it's exciting. And we thank the tourism and the industry and for getting everyone's, you know, focus back on space and what it has to offer. So, you know, we're expecting it to continue to grow and to grow rapidly too. So we're glad that we're a part of that. You know, we're excited to be a part of it. We're going to continue to focus on those revenue streams that, you know, I mentioned previously. But I believe as more companies, countries, and consumers see the value of space, you know, we're going to continue to see that grow. It's just a given. We're very excited about what's going to happen with commercial space.
So another question from Lena Craig, asking a little bit about the relationship between Craig Technologies and Sidus Space. Is Craig Technologies the same?
Sure. And I mentioned that very briefly in the beginning, so I'll give a little bit more on that. So Craig Technologies is the parent company, or was the parent company of Sidus Space. Sidus Space is a spinoff from Craig Technologies, and Craig Technologies is the majority shareholder. We actually started our manufacturing facility from the bottom up with no investors as a complement to Craig Technologies. And we had no additional angel investors or support like that. And so the relationship is not the same, but the partnership is there. And like I said, the majority shareholders. So it's a complementary partnership, but they are two separate companies.
Okay. Alan Fisher and Lily C., they're saying you're trading at less than 3 times equity. They're concerned about the significant drop in stock value from the beginning of the year over the indexed value. Do you see additional support for the stock value in the near-term future?
Sure. So, you know, there are a lot of external factors, you know, in the market today. I do think that, again, we're pressing forward with our focus on what we've said we're going to do, our growing revenue and launching our satellite constellation. And so I think as we just continue to focus on what our mission is and what the goal is, I think we'll see good results.
Okay. Ed Morales has a follow-up question on that. Understanding the net loss went from 0.2 to 0.14 cents per share over the previous quarter, assuming that's due to reinvesting in technology, or can you elaborate on this? And what is a time frame to cash flow positive?
Sure. So as far as the reinvesting in the company, one of the reasons that we did the IPO and that we raised money was so that we could accelerate our growth and take advantage of what is happening with the space economy. And so that's certainly what we're doing. We're deploying those funds to be able to grow and to expand and to accelerate what we're going to be offering to our customers. And then as far as profitability, we're just going to continue to focus on our plan ahead and get our satellites launched.
Pete Hardy likes how you said nobody will capture the entire market. So how big is the market and how much of it can you capture over the next 12 to 24 months?
Sure. So I don't think anybody knows how big the market is. Like there were those numbers thrown out there, 1.4 million. Those are expectations, right? So I think it's just a matter of staying focused and getting our plan out there. I think that the customers, part of it is customer adoption and making sure that everyone knows this is available, because that's some of what we're doing is debunking some myths, maybe that, you know, space, or reimagining, you know, space access is one of our other taglines, that this is available to you. It is not as big and scary as it's been described in the past. So I think that we'll just continue to do that over the next 2 years and grow.
Okay. DS asks you to elaborate more on the discussions with global partners. What does that mean?
Sure. So there are a number of what I would call underrepresented international countries out there that do not have the funding for their own space programs, or if they do have the funding, it's very limited. So we've been working with several of them to see how we can provide them support. It's all about the low cost. It's all about showing them something that maybe they hadn't imagined before. So that's when we talk about the global partnerships, is getting out there and saying that this is an option. And we can help them, again, with our space as a service. We can help them with constellation. We can help them with engineering. We can help them with space-based hardware. But really to be able to say, even if your funding is lower than most, it's okay. We can actually support you and we can help you.
Okay. Wes Naylor asks, is organic launch capability part of your technology roadmap?
Launch capability as in building our own rockets. At this time, that's not our focus. Our focus is building our satellites, launching those, and providing space-based data and on-orbit testing.
Lyle Barnes says, Musk and SpaceX are pioneers in privatizing the space program. Where do you fit in, and what would have been government missions and private missions? And on what would have been government missions and private missions? Also, do you have any partnerships or discussions with other missions in your space? Pardon the pun.
So I agree that Elon Musk, I've said this before, that he is one of the reasons that, we are where we are now, and which is wonderful. How do we fit into it? We're the data piece. We're the satellite piece. We're really here to help the space ecosystem. And that's what our bringing space down to Earth was also for those companies that want to be a part of the space ecosystem, because it is going to continue to grow. So the supplier base, being able to get more competition out there, more technologies, flight certified, so that they can be a part of this and they can integrate into satellites or into rockets or whatever it may be. That's really how we feel that we fit into this.
All right, bringing space to Earth. This is a fascinating technology. I can't believe we're already here, but here we are. So thank you so much, Carol. We do have a lot more questions for you, but we're out of time. So we'll send them to you so you can answer on your own. But thank you so much for joining us. Really great presentation.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back with our next presenter.